Oh,
that was so much fun.
Real Hopkinton Housewives. If you're on Facebook, you will have a blast. Thanks for joining us.
Guys.
It's been a great.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
See you guys.
Bye.
HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
You're watching HCAM TV, and for more Hopkinton, visit HCAM Ed.
All right.
Age is all up here.
There you go.
So true.
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
Thanks, Bob. Well, we only.
You have 5.
Do we have 5?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I made my screen smaller, so I can't see everybody here. But
You got Mary, Paul, Jane, and Ronnie, and now
What's
Elise. You've got Mary, Paul, Jane, Ronnie, and now Elise.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is Gary Trendle, Chair of the Hopkinton Planning Board, and I hereby call our January 23rd, 2023 meeting to order. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with the previously signed an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The new law has 2 major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of the public body instead of holding meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public. Second, the new law authorizes all members of the public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM through multiple channels. Thank you, HCAM. Please note this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar. Unless otherwise noted, the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. With regards to public comment, not every agenda item will feature public comment. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and begin with your name and address. You will be afforded 3 minutes. Finally, each vote taken in the meeting will be conducted by roll call. So let's just check in and confirm who's here. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary?
Yes.
Rob? Rob's not here. Fran is not going to be able to join us. He had a late work conflict. Jane?
Yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihailowski, yes.
Paul? Paul's not here yet. Matthew?
Here. Paul's here.
Oh, hi, Paul.
Hi. Matthew Franca here.
And Gary Trindle is here. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Gilsich?
John Gilsich present.
Miss Pemberton?
Stephanie Pemberton present.
And Mr. Paradis? Not here yet, but I think we're okay there.
I don't think Phil will be joining us because I don't see where if the trails is going to continue, he probably will not need anything else.
That's fair. I just figured I'd check. I wasn't sure if he was in the loop on that as well. All right. Well, taking a quick look at our agenda tonight, we do have a number of administrative items to work through, and we have one continued public hearing for the trails. And per John's comments, given the ongoing discussion between Beta and the trails, it sounds like they may request a continuation. But I don't see Mr. Bemis on here. So John, I'm thinking we just wait a little while since we've got administrative items. We can work through those and then we can continue. We can take a vote on continuing the trails at a later point in the meeting. Make sense? Okay. So let's start off with our A&Rs. So just really quickly, we've got a couple of A&Rs. We have a street acceptance for Box Mill Road. We have an easement acceptance for town meeting for 77 South Street. We have some updates, 69 Franklin Road. Want to continue the discussion on planning board's goals and objectives. We'll see how that goes. And then we also wanted to include, we included board liaison updates for those of you that are members on other boards. We just want to use the meeting tonight to share progress and happenings on that front. So, Morris Lane. And is that, John, is that you sharing your screen? And I see Mr. Markedon. Mr. Markedon, are you representing the applicant? Or is it Mr. Nealon? Sorry.
I believe Mr. Nealon.
Sorry, Mr. Nealon. Mr. Nealon, are you on?
Yeah, I am here, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that.
No worries. Mr. Nealon, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us why you are in front of the planning board this evening?
We're asking the planning board to endorse an approval not required plan for Morse Road showing, Morse Lane showing two lots that have adequate frontage and area under the dimensional requirements of the bylaw for that zone.
All right, thank you. And that's what's shown here. And I know that we've seen this previously, but if you can just outline specifically, and I think Mr. Gelsich can go ahead and follow along with his cursor, but can you just, for the public or other members that maybe haven't been part of the discussion, if you can just talk us through the changes that you are proposing.
All right. I don't have the plan in front of me, I'm sorry, but the lot on the left is the original lot shown on the subdivision plan, except that some of the frontage is now being used for the fifth lot, along with some area that as part of the subdivision was with the lot on the furthest right.
Okay, so just to clarify for folks, the old lot line is the diagonal one going across.
Yes, that's correct.
That went between the shed and the existing barn. And what's being proposed is the N54-4415E that runs somewhat parallel to the lots to the left, takes a jog back in order to preserve the existing barn, and then continues on the same track to the back property line.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Mr. Gelsich, do you have a town hall guidance review of this?
Yeah, so the lot was approved through the subdivision amendment that we did a couple weeks back. So they can do an extra lot in this subdivision, and the proposed lots meet frontage and lot area, so they would be eligible for an A&R.
All right. Ronnie, you have a question or comment?
Yes, to the chair. Are the sheds the correct distance away from new lot lines? Because I know there's certain rules based upon shed sizes.
Mr. Nealon?
Yes, I believe it has the adequate side yard requirement there.
It's just hard to see.
Noting that the small shed will actually is actually going to be, I believe, torn down. At least that's what the applicant had previously.
The small
expressed.
shed,
The
that's
lot
correct.
line runs through it.
Okay, so the small shed will be destroyed, and therefore the new lines would ensure that the existing barn, which I do not know the guidelines as to what the requirements are for it to be X number of distance away from the property line, but it looks like 37 feet. Is that, John, is that the code? Even though it looks like maybe there's a spot that's a little bit narrower than.
So usually it shows the shortest distance. So this may look closer, but this may be farther away than that.
So it's 37 feet beyond the minimum requirements?
Yeah, usually the side yard is like 10 feet.
Even for something that's the size of a barn?
They don't regulate side yard based on the size of the building.
Oh, I was unaware of that. Thank you.
Matthew, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just a question of timing and ordering. Would we need to wait for the shed to be raised before this gets approved, or is it fine to approve it while the shed's still there? Okay.
Well, just to clarify, we don't actually approve it; we endorse it, which is a minor technicality, right. But yes, we can actually endorse this before it is fully processed.
We're just endorsing the plan that it doesn't need. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's it. I don't see any other hands raised or questions. I just want to say I personally really appreciate the effort to preserve the existing barn. I think I know it hasn't been used in some time, but still got a lot of character and history there. So I appreciate that. I will entertain a motion to endorse the A&R for 7 Morse Lane.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, assuming no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Monroe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Ron?
Ron Fraser, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihailovsky, yes.
Paul?
Paul Ostrander, yes.
Matthew?
Matthew Vronka, yes.
And Gary Trimble is a yes, so that endorsement carries. Thank you, Mr. Nealon. And I know that Stephanie's going to ask us to come in and sign, but we'll get through the second A&R, if it's okay, before we have that conversation.
Thank you all very much.
52 School Street. Is there someone to represent the O'Connor Family Trust?
Yes, sir, I am here. Joe Marquardt.
Mr. Marquardt.
Evening all.
Do you have a drawing, or can Mr. Gelsich pull it up and you can explain to us why you are before us this evening?
Certainly. Joe Marquardt here on behalf of Al O'Connor and his wife. They own the 5.4 acre parcel that fronts on both West Main Street and School Street. So they're at the corner of West Main and School, house number 52. I mentioned a moment ago, 5.4 acres. What Al would like to do, the owner would like to do, is separate a lot at the southerly end along West Main Street, retain 52, which is his residence, and then sell off what we show here as Lot 2B. Al is 74 years old, 74 years young, and is contemplating retirement, like to stay in his home and entertain offers on the parcel out front. We're in the agricultural zone district. 60,000 square foot, which we exceed with both lots, and 200 foot of frontage, which both lots 2A and 2B have. So they're in excess of the minimum requirements.
Sorry, I was muted. Just I'm trying to orient myself here. There's West Main. There's School Street. So where's this property in relation to the Evergreen?
That is Evergreen Haven.
That's what I thought. Okay.
If his home is up the top of the page, north, number 52. The greenhouses in that building, that odd-shaped building down along West Main Street, is actually their display area.
Okay, perfect. So he's just splitting that off, retain his house, and then that gives him that parcel to do what he pleases as a separate parcel.
Correct.
All right, Mr. Gelsich, town hall perspective.
So like the other one, this lot or the proposed lot and the existing lot would both meet lot area and frontage, so they would be eligible for endorsement.
All right, questions? Mr. Prefer.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just obviously curious about what's the plan with the greenhouses, since they would be in the property that would no longer be in possession of the homeowner.
I assume
go ahead, Mr. Marcotte.
Unless I misunderstood it.
Yeah, the buyer can use them for whatever purpose they wish.
Oh, so they can keep them. They have the right to erase them, whatever. Okay.
Yep.
And so during the process of going through the sale, will the greenhouses be still in use, or will they be emptied until so that the sale goes through?
They're empty now. I assume they will stay that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Paul.
Through the chair, and this might be a question for John. I actually share a property line with Al and Kathy. So I assume I should probably remove myself from this.
Probably a safe bet.
Yep.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Volunteering there. Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to endorse the A&R for 52 School Street.
Mary Larson.
Moved. Second, Matthew Franco.
The motion, Matthew the second. Thank you both. Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Murrin, yes.
Ronnie?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihайлowski, yes.
Matthew?
Matthew Franco, yes.
And Gary Trimble is a yes as well, so that is a unanimous endorsement. So thank you, Mr. Marcotte.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next one, we have a proposed town meeting article for street acceptance of Box Mill Road. John, you want to walk us through what we're looking at here?
Sure. So Peter Barbieri, who is the developer of Box Mill, is looking to get the road accepted. He's done the final work that was needed, that was being held up due to a lawsuit from Lou Petrozzi against Mr. Barbieri and the town. That was resolved. Mr. Barbieri came in, added that basin a couple months ago that you guys approved, and now he is looking to get the street accepted. So the first step in the process is to add it to the warrant, and then we'll have the inspector review and then prepare a report, and we'll go through the process that way.
So John, in the past, I recall street acceptances are done by the select board. And can you just help us all understand why in this situation we're processing this through the planning board?
So we did the street acceptance for Fox Hollow, and I'm blanking on another one. From the town manager's office, they believe that the process really should get started with the planning board, since the planning board approves these subdivisions. The state law requires the select board to take action, but because the planning board really does the process to get these streets built and approved. They thought that the street acceptance should start with the planning board instead of having the select board go through the administrative motions to send it back to the planning board. The planning board can just do that and then move it forward.
Makes sense, and I apologize if I asked you that previously. Questions or comments from the board? All right. Seeing none. So, John, just to clarify, this is just a vote to, is this a vote to add the article, or is this a vote to recommend acceptance of Box Mill Road?
No, so this is just to add it to the warrant, and then we'll hold a hearing where the report will be drafted, and then you guys will vote on a recommendation.
All right, thank you. So I will entertain a motion to add a town meeting article for the street acceptance of Box Mill Road.
Mary Larson Marlowe, so moved.
Rob, second.
Assuming no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Ronnie?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihайлowski, yes.
Paul?
Paul, yes.
Matthew? Matthew, you're muted. Thumbs up. Can we accept that? I think we can accept that. Gary Trindle is a yes as well, and that carries unanimously. Another proposed town meeting article for easement acceptance at 77 South Street. John?
So this may be unnecessary, but I think we're doing it just to be on the safe side. The 77 South Street, formerly known as 0 South Street, which is the 3 condo unit warehouse that Paul Mastriani built and was approved 2 or 3 years ago. In the decision, there was a easement that was part of the stormwater system that the town maintains on their site. And so they are just formalizing this easement. I believe DPW has already added this to their collection of 3 easement acceptances that are before town meeting, but just in case, we are going to add this to the warrant, and we can always pull it back off. You're muted, Gary.
It's a problem of having a cold. I keep trying to mute myself, so I'm not sniffing in everyone's ear. So DPW likely already has this included in a broader easement, but just so that we don't hold up the developer, this is a contingency or backup.
Yeah, just in case for some reason the process with DPW adding it to the warrant didn't work out, we're not going to hold them up another year to get this accepted.
Got it. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to recommend a town meeting article for easement acceptance at 77 South Street.
Mary Larson Marlowe, so moved.
Rob Benson, second.
Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul?
Paul, yes.
Matthew? Thumbs up. And Gary Trindle is a yes as well. That one passes unanimously. 69 Franklin Road. S&P determination of significant special permit determination. I see Mr. Fasandola on. And before we get to you, Mr. Fasandola, John, do you want to just explain what's before us here? And then we can have Mr. Fasandola articulate it in a little bit more detail. But just from a process perspective, if you could just summarize.
Let me share the plan.
Here.
So this is really kind of 2, but not really. kind of two items. So I just want to explain from the background, and Nick will probably explain this maybe in a little bit more detail. So they cleared the site for the Franklin Solar Array. And in doing so, they uncovered some other historic resources that the National Tribal Historic Preservation Office came out and reviewed and expanded the area in certain places. So 3 of them are here. And so what these are is really just bumping out the access road to avoid boulders or other resources. This one is to clear out this connection because there's a resource area here and make a little T intersection here to serve the equipment pad. These 3 changes were determined by the zoning enforcement officer to be de minimis changes. They don't impact anything. So he signed off on that. They're okay with all of these. The other one is this resource area here, which this is a stormwater basin. And let's see. I believe it's this one. So this is change to the driveway. Actually, you know what? I think there's a better plan. Nick, you can tell me if there's a better plan. I think this one is the one we're looking at.
Yeah, that's the better plan.
Yeah, so the resource areas or the historic resource areas affect the basin that was previously designed. And so what they have submitted is a letter to have the planning board make a determination on the stormwater management permit. You guys might be familiar with this for the Eversource project. The planning board has the chance to review these things for a determination of no significance. And so what that means is the proposed changes will not significantly impact the design of the stormwater system and will not impact the approval of the stormwater management plan. So what the planning board can do is review these changes, make that determination of no significance, or make a determination that says that they have to amend the permit that was approved or require a new permit. So I think Nick can probably go in a little bit more detail as to what they're proposing, but when you listen to that, just think of the 3 things. Does this impact the stormwater management permit to a point that it needs to be amended to reflect these changes and be reviewed by Beta? Or are these changes minimal enough that the stormwater management permit is still effective and the stormwater system is basically serving the purposes of the stormwater regulation?
All right, thanks, John. And I think from my perspective, and the board has questions otherwise, I think the roadway modifications seem pretty straightforward. So maybe Nick, if you can just walk us through the stormwater changes, and if you could just kind of help us understand the before and after, and we'll go from there.
Sure, not a problem. So for the record, Nick Fasandola, Level Design Group. We are the record engineer for the developments. So we did the original design plans and worked through the permitting process back in 2000. So just to give some of the members a little background, this is a ground-mounted solar facility. It received a special permit and stormwater management permits back in July of 2000. John, you mind if I share my screen? I can kind of use the cursor to go over a few things here.
Nick, just to clarify, I think you mean 2020, correct?
Oh, sorry, 2020. It's been one of those days. I apologize. Yeah, because you were still.
I knew what you were getting at. I just figured for anyone that maybe wasn't a part of this process before.
No. Yeah, that is correct. July of 2020. I apologize for that. All right. So this view that I'm showing here is an overall view of the site. So we have Franklin Road down here. Access to the site is through this driveway. We have one main, we'll call it knoll of panels in this area. We have a second knoll of panels in this area. There's a gas transmission line easement which runs through the center. And then we have some panels, third knoll panels to the north of that. The area we're discussing is right here. This is what we called Stormwater Management Basin number 2. This essentially takes runoff from this area right through the center here. It flows overland, goes into a swale, which is located in this area. There's a second swale located along the driveway here, and that directs the stormwater runoff to the stormwater basin where it's then infiltrated. And then we have some piped overflows. That was part of the original design. So this is the plan that John was showing us earlier. This one's in color to help show the difference between the two designs. The purple is the original approved site grading and shape of the basin. So I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see that this basin was a large basin that went around the edge of this driveway curve right through here. And we had a series of outlet pipes and an emergency overflow in this area right through here. As I said before, we had a swale that's directing stormwater runoff into the basin from this side and from the lower side here. This area right here is the newly identified Native American monument, which John briefly touched on. As you can see, it essentially falls right in the middle of the basin berm, which impacts how we're able to grade the site. We also discovered a large area of dumped fill that was backfilled. Looked like it was placed there when part of the original facility was built. This was the former Liberty Mutual test site. They had a, I believe it was called a test track. So it was a large paved area where they would do different types of vehicle tests and things of that nature. And that was built in the early 70s. And it appears that they have, they just kind of took some of the old tailings and garbage material and then dumped it into this area and filled this whole back corner in. And that was missed when we did our stormwater basin testing, which we did a test hole here and we did a test hole here. We just happened to just miss this area of fill. And, the issue that causes is that we're no longer able to place the basin at the originally approved grade. So when we discovered all this, we called Beta because they've been doing routine inspections at the site. And we met on site and discussed these issues that arose during the construction process. And then we dug another test pit in here to verify groundwater. And, through discussions with Beta was determined that we could lower this part of the basin and try to work a redesign in to preserve this historic monument area and to address the removal of all that unsuitable fill material, which was dumped there in the 70s. So what I came up with was having two smaller basins, one located in this area, which is essentially a rectangle, and then a second basin, which is at a lower elevation right in this area. So there's no change to how the water gets to the stormwater management basins. It's still going to come in through this swale, come in through this swale. It's still going to be infiltrated. We just had to reconfigure some of the outlet structures to work around the monument we're trying to preserve. I have a pipe connecting the two basins in this area. So overall, we're within that same originally approved footprint. And the stormwater is getting to the basin in the same fashion as the original approved plan. It's just we had to reshape the basins to accommodate those areas of concern which were discovered during construction. As John had mentioned, this is within the 100-foot buffer zone, this section right through here. So we did start off with an application to the Conservation Commission, as that is within their jurisdictional area. And they had reviewed the project. They actually sent the project change, and I did some supporting stormwater calculations to show that there was no major changes in the flows that were going to be coming out of this basin. There wouldn't be any impact to the wetland area. So they sent those calculations and the plans over to Beta and had them do a full review of the modified stormwater basin And Beta came back with a few minor suggestions. They asked that we put a couple extra check dams in this area right through here, and those are shown here and here. And then it was mostly housekeeping items. They wanted me to update the operation and maintenance plan, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which are that's a construction document that we utilize to detail erosion control measures during construction. The operation and maintenance plan was updated to reflect the new configuration of the basins. All minor items that were taken care of, and we were in and out of conservation in one meeting, and they had no issues with the proposed changes. Overall, that's the modification in a nutshell. I could continue on, but in an attempt to save time and address any questions you guys have, I'll leave it there.
All right, thanks, Nick. So just to clarify, these proposed changes have all been reviewed by Beta. And can you confirm, I was just looking through the administrative notes, do you have something in writing from Beta as to their review of the newly designed system?
Sure, I did provide this letter within the package. So they prepared in a letter dated December 20th. I can kind of go through it real quick. Just this, as their typical comment letters go, it's just a summary of what was submitted, stormwater management permit review. And then there was, like I said, there's 3 minor items that came up, and we ended up addressing all those. So the SW 1 through 5, I'll kind of go through here and highlight these items. So they wanted updated recharge calculations. We provided those prior to our meeting with conservation, at which Beta attended. So they had no issues with those items that we provided to them. Let's see. Comment number 2 is requesting that a representative be present when the basin is being installed. That type of oversight has been going on throughout the entire project. Beta has been doing inspections of the previously constructed 2 other basins on site, so we have no concerns or problems with that comment. They requested a couple of additional check dams, which I highlighted earlier in SW3. And SW4, they wanted us to adjust the erosion controls and update the SWIP plan, which were also completed. And then update the operation and maintenance plan. That was essentially the bulk of their review, 3 pages. We did prepare a formal response, which I copied in the package I submitted to the planning board. This was our formal response detailing the changes that were made, and Beta never followed up with a final letter. Essentially, they notified the Conservation Commission on record at the meeting that they were satisfied with all the responses to the comments.
All right, thanks, Nick. Appreciate all the detail, and I appreciate yours and the property developers' willingness to work with around those Native American artifacts. So I know there's a fair amount of additional work here, and I, for one, certainly appreciate it. Questions or comments from the board? Matthew.
I was just trying to find the beta article, the beta letter in the files on the that are on the Google Drive. I don't know if anybody else could find it. I see some of the older letters, nothing from beta. So just wondering if I'm missing it. That's also, I think, like the biggest thing on my mind is just beta's thoughts on it.
I think I was looking at the response from Level Design Group that's in there. That's Basin 2 alteration determination submission letter. But it's a little hard on my computer to read the full names.
Yeah, I see the one from January 4th, one from November 28th, from Level.
John, is the beta letter in here? Which file is it?
I thought I had put the beta letter in here. Now I can't find it in my files, but I'm looking in my email. I think I have it in my email. Nick, is it the one dated 12/12?
That's it.
Yeah.
Let me pull it back up on my end. So I believe it in the package I had sent over in the online, folder that had all the PDFs. It would be under the supporting documents. I think it's the first thing that should pop up. Because I know that's primarily what the board would want to see. They want to see Beta's review on this. So, but it is the 12. They actually dated. I think they had a typo on here. It's dated 12/2020 on the first page, but the second page is dated 12/22. So, but this is the letter that was provided to Kim and to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, thanks, Nick. And
It's in the folder now. And I will point out, I believe we asked Beta to review to the planning board standards as well as they reviewed for Concom, just to make sure.
okay. So that's in the file. For folks that want to take a look at it, I'm hopeful that you can multitask with the discussion and take a quick scan through it. That's what I'm doing right now. Are there other questions or comments for the applicant? None. Do you guys want a minute or two to scan through this really quick? Does anybody have any talents they want to share with the planning board while people read through it? Well, like I said, I certainly appreciate all the additional effort here. I know as a board and as a town, we've I think made some good efforts to preserve these artifacts. And it feels to me, the fact that they've already gone through the full beta review, and given that the stormwater system is performing in its similar intended manner, it's just with some minor modifications. My inclination is that these proposed changes are not significant. But any thoughts to the contrary from the board members? Okay, then in that situation, John, can you give me a little help with what the motion language should be here?
So the motion would be that the board finds that the proposed changes are not significant and that a letter stating such should be issued to the applicant. Or let me say, the proposed changes are determined to be not significant with respect to the stormwater management permit. And that the planner should issue a letter to the applicant saying such.
Okay, and then with regards to the minor road changes, are there any questions or comments from the planning board on those minor road changes. So John, that would be a second motion, correct?
So that there's really no action that needs to be taken. I included it just so that the board had a say if you wanted to disagree with the zoning enforcement official. If you felt that those were significant changes to the special permit, we can go through the process to amend the special permit. But if you agree with the zoning enforcement official's determination, then I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken.
Okay. So on that note, I will entertain a motion that the board, based on the engineering work of the applicant and review by Beta, finds that the changes in the stormwater management plan are determined to not be significant, and that the planning board issue a letter stating such, allowing the applicant to undertake these alterations immediately.
So moved.
So moved. Second, Matthew Franca.
All right. Any further discussion? Yes, John.
I think you might want to change the motion to allow the planner to issue a letter, because I think usually with these, I write the letter, sign it, and then send it out, rather than needing you guys to come in and sign it.
All right. So I suggest a revised language that the board, based on the engineering work by the applicant and review by Beta, finds that these changes are determined to not be significant, and that the town planner can issue a letter stating such, and allowing the applicant to undertake these alterations immediately.
I accept the friendly changes to the motion.
Matthew?
Second. Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul?
Paul, yes.
Matthew?
Matthew Franca, yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. That motion carries unanimously. Nick, again, appreciate all the detail and the extra work here. So thank you, and have a good evening.
All right, guys, thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a quick and short meeting.
Don't jinx us.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next on our administrative list is planning board goals and objectives. And we had some pretty loose brainstorming at our last meeting. And I will confess, I have not consolidated that feedback and come up with any proposals for it, just given some other employment-related focus for me in the last couple of weeks. But any further thoughts or recommendations from members of the board? And my goal here is for us to commit and undertake one additional project related to a planning exercise on behalf of the board. We've done some of this in the past. I just think that scaling back a little bit and being realistic about what we can achieve, I think is wise. So I'm going to pause there and open it up to the board and see if there's anything in particular that people got excited about.
Well, through the chair, when you said excited, one thing that did excite me was the concept of having a zero carbon neighborhood. So I got excited about that.
Through the chair?
Mary?
Yeah. So I agree. The zero carbon is very exciting. I think the affordable housing is absolutely a need. And it's a long-term plan because at the next census, I feel that there's going to be some needs associated with that. So,
John.
So I just want to tell you guys something that I found out, and I don't know if these are the official numbers. So the 2020 census housing figures have not been publicly released to us. MAPC, I think, received some form of them. And in our conversation about the Shared Housing Services Office, they did a calculation of the current housing units on the subsidized housing inventory and then the total housing units from the 2020 census. We've been using the 2010 because we don't have the 2020 available. And their numbers seem to show that we are now going to be down to 10.9% from 14%. So we've lost a significant chunk. We were predicting we would be in the 11 to 12% range. So just want to give a heads up that we are probably closer to the threshold than we realize. And that's a change based on the census figures from the last 10 years. So just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, John. And that's even with some pretty substantial building with affordable units. Any hypothesis as to why that number is lower than what we were expecting?
There may have just been more housing units that we didn't factor in. I mean, you look at, it's not a ton, but you look at Chamberlain Wayland, I don't think they're factoring those in because they're not built, but there's 32 units or 29 units that don't have an affordable component because they're doing a payment in lieu. The trails don't have any affordable units because they're payments in lieu. A&Rs tend to add up. You get about 25 building permits a year for houses, for new houses, and that can tend to add up. And those A&R lots that aren't part of any kind of permits can sneak up on you and change the counts. After a number
Well,
of
in
years.
reality, it's just the trails. There's a lot of units there.
Not all of them are constructed, so they all aren't calculated. So the problem is we don't have the 2020 housing units, so I can't really tell you what the number is. This is just, and their calculation may have been wrong, but we just had a meeting about something and that was what they came up with. So I just want to point out that that could be true, and that could mean that we're lower on the, we're still over the threshold, but we're just lower than we thought we may be.
Yeah. So one other thought, and this is where my thoughts are. Number one is the MBTA community agreement and recommendation there. I think number one, that's something that we have to, we're gonna have to chart out a pathway forward there. Regardless of what that looks like. And John, just to clarify too, though, is that if there are affordable units, realize that's zoning for as opposed to built out. But to me, that is a project that would, we're going to have to sort through anyways. And two, could also be a mechanism to help address some of the affordability challenges that we're facing within the state. So that's one area that I think we're going to have to address either way in the next, call it 12 to 18 months. The other thing that I think is potentially interesting. We currently have an existing zoning and this kind of goes back to that zero carbon, smaller housing, whatnot. We have an existing zoning for garden style units that currently is not buildable because we're above that 10% threshold. But one of the things that I've been thinking about is there a way that we can use that zone, but beef up the bylaws associated with that, that would help ensure that whatever is built under that is what I would call a higher quality, more desirable garden style units. So this is very early thinking, but whether there might be some mechanism to improve include some design standards, and I feel really strongly that smaller and denser housing, when done well, can be a nice asset for the town. The catch there is that I think it works well when it's done nicely. If it's done too far to one extreme on desirability factor, then I think it's candidly less desirable for me. But I just throw that out there for folks that, you know, we have an existing zone that we could refresh the bylaws on, that could be a mechanism for us to have a net positive impact on the town. Yes, Jane.
So I'm not sure how to approach this, but one of the things that the school committee is running into now is with their application for their new school is that we're only eligible for 20 to 25% reimbursement from the state because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because we're considered a wealthy community. So how does affordable housing, and we want to have more dense units, but we want them to be well designed and most likely pricey. Factor down into the fact that maybe going forward into future schools that we know we're going to have to factor in, do we want to continue to have really pricey housing? It's a complex issue, I understand that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we end up paying more taxes. On one hand, you know, that's going to, you know, be coming forward in a discussion soon, versus wanting to maintain our standard lifestyle. How do we address that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jane, and I think that's sort of at the crux of what we're talking about here. I don't think anyone would disagree that there's a benefit to having more attainable or more affordable housing. It's just a function of how do we do that in a way that people can feel good about, and that really strengthens the makeup of the town. So I think it's a tricky one, but I guess, you know, the state is set up. The state realizes that local planning boards tend to have a hard time addressing these challenges, and so the reality of it is that the state is consistently looking for ways to force us to address it. So to me, this is just my take. We can try to get ahead of it, and we can find a means that you know, helps ensure that we build things that are desirable for the town, or we can wait and react, or we can wait for the state to force it upon us. And we've seen that happen in the past. We've been below that 10% threshold before. Just my take on it, I think there's a benefit to us getting ahead of it and finding something to help us be in a little bit better control, that helps ensure that we're getting what we desire, not necessarily what a developer or what the state desires. So that's my take. Paul, you have your hand raised. Do you have comments or questions?
Yeah, kind of to Jane's point, I think it's really important. Didn't we approve a warrant article to be heard that we'll be hearing about to lower the affordable housing requirement from 10 to 6, potentially 5? So that's something in the right direction. Again, I don't think it solves, you know, a crisis of that's the right word. And then also a different area would be accessory dwelling units. I know Zach's kind of been hearing that a little bit, and I've been part of that, but we have pretty good rules already on the books from the bylaws. So I'd be happy to discuss that with Zach, see if we can change those bylaws a little bit to make it more accommodating for family members and such.
Yeah, good points. I will say that even if the change of the bylaws to require affordable units, that helps, but it still doesn't guarantee anything's built. So, but I think that's a step in the right direction. And the only caution I have on the ADUs is that we have had a couple of town meeting articles on ADUs over the last several years. So I'm a little cautious there because there's been a lot of debate about that. Certainly there's some things that could be more ADU friendly, but there was also some pretty strong opposition to larger ADUs at town meeting. But I think both good comments. Rob?
I think there's I think there's our 40B requirement, and I think that is something we all need to be cognizant of. I asked John for this a week or two ago about where our affordable housing units were in Hopkinton, and there's not one affordable housing unit in a neighborhood, not one, like in a traditional neighborhood. They're all in specific locations that were built as affordable housing unit complexes, for lack of a better word. Thinking developers are going to go and build like you look at Whisper Way, the houses are selling for 2.6 million, or you look at off Chamberlain, 1.8 to 2 million. They're not going to put an affordable housing unit next to a $2 million house. So this idea, we're going to like all of a sudden get developers to do that. The people buying the $2 million house don't want an affordable unit next to it. The developers don't want to build it. So what do we need to do to stay above the 40B threshold? I think that is the direction that the town wants us to go in, and anything beyond that is like, I think that's the only thing we need to focus on. All the other things of affordable housing or attainable housing, it's stay above the 40B threshold so we don't have an unfriendly development thrust upon us. And that's if we could poll the town instantaneously, that's my opinion of what they would say.
So, Rob, I will say, I can tell you Sanctuary Lane, which is right around the corner for me, that has affordable units mixed in with regular units. And I think some of the Legacy Farms properties also have them mixed in. So I think there are situations where there are affordable units mixed in a regular neighborhood. I agree with you that developers building $2 million homes on 1 to 2 acre lots, certainly nothing they want to do and nothing the neighborhood wants. So I'll agree and disagree, but to me, that's where this idea of, leveraging, for example, the garden style housing zone as a way to help us address this and help, provide a means of incorporating affordable units into a plan is a way to help address that.
So through the chair, the bigger picture problem is we have the schools predicted to go up by about 1,000 students. People see the tax burden with that. The idea that we're going to change zoning to allow more housing, increase more of a burden on our school. I just disagree that we'll ever get 2/3 of the town to pass in town meeting that they want that. I just don't think that will happen.
Yeah, well, the result of no action is 40B developments.
No, well, I think we need to figure out what we need to do to meet the 40B requirement. That's what I think the goal is. Figure out what we need to do to meet that requirement so we don't have unfriendly. Any of this other conjecture of making the town more accessible to more families, if it doesn't fall into meeting our 40B requirement, then I don't see anyone, or I don't see the town being supportive.
You might be right about that. I'll just tell you that I, for one, see a lot of benefit and value to providing more attainable, affordable housing. I just think that there's a good way to do it and there's a less desirable way to do it. So again, I can't tell you whether 2/3 of the town would support it or not, but that's just my perspective. But I can think of a lot of situations where it's very desirable, and I think there's other people in town that could potentially see that as well. Ronnie.
Like I've been sitting back listening and stuff like that. I have to wholeheartedly agree with Rob Benson here. Having 2/3 vote for something, I don't see it happening, especially since I'm not going to speak about my own, but the rather significant increase in our property taxes, and the fact that our school systems our schooling is pushed to the brink because of the size. I would have to agree that I think we need to be very, very proactive here in how we go forth on this particular potentially upcoming problem. So I agree with Rob's thoughts as well as maybe some of the solutions.
So let me ask a question. And I guess if the board feels like, I guess I'm not clear as to what, and at least we'll get to you in just 1 second, but if that's in general the consensus of the board and the goal is to maintain an affordable threshold of at least 10%, what might a project like that look like? And I'm wondering if either of you have, am I still on?
Yeah, we can hear you. See you.
Sorry. John, you're sharing your screen. No? Maybe that was somebody else. I guess what I'd love to hear is, and I realize, and again, I can appreciate it. I think we all want to avoid unfriendly 40Bs. I think that's probably universal among virtually everybody. But I'm curious if you have a proposal of a project or how we as a board might go about evaluating different options to help us avoid that.
Through the chair, like my first recommendation would be we get payment in lieu regularly for, but I've never, since in my time living in Hopkinton, I've never seen a project put forward by the town with the funds provided for payment in lieu. Like, how do we as a town manage? We're getting incoming money so that they don't have to build affordable housing units. We have a town government, we have employees of the town. We need to figure out how to use these funds to basically run as a business. We're the business of Hopkinton. We need to basically stay above the threshold. That's the goal. We have incoming proceeds to help us support that effort. And now we have to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah. So that was one of our previous priorities previously was how we could better use the funds that we have in affordable housing. Yes, sorry, I'm John. And I know we've got Elise. I'm going to let John comment on that really quick, and then we'll go to Elise and then to Jane.
Yeah, I just want to address Rob's comment on that one, just to clarify what those how those funds are used and what those funds are used for. So town employees can't expend those funds. I can't just go and decide to create a development, right?
No, I know that.
Those funds are managed by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. They're the only ones authorized to expend those funds. And up until about 6 months ago, there was no active Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. They are now a fully staffed board. They're working through the process of figuring out what they can do with those funds, but they're all pretty inexperienced. They don't exactly know how to use these things. They're still getting their feet under them. And it's not like they can just, I mean, for argument's sake, I don't know exactly how much money is in the account. Let's say it's $2 million, because I think it's around there, give or take $500,000. They can't, they're not developers. Mm-hmm. So they can't just go and hire a developer and say, build us 5 affordable housing units, right? And they especially can't do that with $2.5 million. So they're trying to find unique ways, buy out expiring deed restrictions or buy new deed restrictions. But that's a whole process to go through that. And that's potentially the most affordable way of doing it. This shared housing services office that we are hopefully going to get up and running within the next 3 months could help in that effort by providing the expertise to that board to do those types of things. But to say that there's all this money that we have, why aren't we building housing units, is a little
I'm not saying we have all this money.
Right. It's tough to make that argument, because I know you realize that, but I just want to point out, we're televised. There's going to be residents coming in and they could be coming to my office and be like, why are you not making affordable housing units with all the money we have? And then I've got to explain that to everybody. It's not that simple. And there's a process that needs to be done. And the people who are administering the process are still getting familiar with the process, because the board members are not affordable housing experts. And they've got staff support to a certain extent, but it's a complex issue. So there is progress in that realm, and I think there's going to be more progress in the next few months, but it's a complex and very difficult process to expend Affordable Housing Trust Fund money coming from these affordable unit payments. And that's why we would prefer the developers build the units themselves, because they've got the infrastructure, they've got the wherewithal, and they've got the resources to build those units alongside other units, whereas we would be starting from scratch and probably not able to build units. It would basically be taking existing units and converting them to affordable.
So hang on a second. I just want to, great discussion. This is a complicated, tough one. I just want to sort of clarify, we're not going to solve this, or we're not going to have a solution to it tonight. That's, my goal is to establish a goal / objective for us to work through the course of the year. It's going to take some time. And so I just kind of want to, we're not going to solve it. If this is something that we want to prioritize, then let's talk about what we can set as a goal for us as a board, and something that we can work towards through the course of the year. So I'm going to go to Elise, and then Jane, and then Ronnie. So Elise, go ahead.
I just wanted to say quickly, I had brought this up before in a ZAC meeting. I know it becomes a legal issue, but it might be worth talking to the town attorney if we could somehow raise the payment in lieu, especially if it's in an area where they're selling the houses for over $2 million. I don't think it's fair that their payment in lieu is the same or significantly less. I don't know if we can raise it to an amount that's not crazy, but still a lot less appealing than just building the unit. And also with the new more aggressive ZAC proposal that we approved in the last meeting, or that we discussed in the last meeting, I think that's going to help too if it passes at town meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Elise. It might be a very good suggestion. And again, a lot of complexities to this stuff. So, Jane?
Yeah, just quickly, I really support the idea of researching rezoning for the garden apartments, as you mentioned earlier, Gary. I think that that's a valuable idea, especially we're going to have to get these units, whether they're in 2-acre properties or $2 million properties or in condensed garden appropriate units. And also I've seen in other towns where there are very lovely homes where they're actually the developers, because they were forced to, have made a large home into actually a 2-family home with the proper facade and everything. It really looks nice in a upscale neighborhood. So I do think that there are some avenues that we could, with Zach's help, we could investigate.
Thanks, Jane. Ronnie?
Again, the simplest potential way of doing this, and I'm not saying I'm in favor for it, is just remove the contingent that someone could pay a certain amount in lieu of building. So basically, if that is stricken, then there's no issues. They have to build something, and therefore there is no possibility of, oh, there's this a committee within a committee deciding what to do with the funds. It goes away, and therefore it will always stay above that threshold. I'm not saying I'm supporting of that. I'm just saying that is the easiest way of doing it.
So here, great conversation, and I think maybe there's a way that we can sort of capture this. I think what I'm hearing, there's a lot of different potential mechanisms, but the goal for us as a planning board is to maintain at least 10% of our housing stock as affordable for the foreseeable future. And to Rob's point, I mean, whether we want to say it that the goal is to prevent unfriendly 40Bs, or whether we want it because people believe there's a benefit to more affordable housing, regardless, I think collectively, I think probably all of us agree that we want to stay above that 10% threshold, because that's how we ensure that we don't get any 40Bs. So maybe that's what we align on here, and I realize that I'm kind of just, kicking the can down the road because there's a lot of different opinions as to how we do that. But I feel like that's a pretty good goal for us. John. Go ahead, John.
So 2 points to that, just to address Ronnie's comment. The inclusionary housing zoning bylaw change that we are going to discuss in a couple of weeks for a zoning change would prevent payments in lieu without a special permit from the planning board. So the planning board would have the authority to say, no, build the units. You don't have a good argument to get a payment in lieu. So that would effectively achieve what you're looking to do. The other thing, Gary, is we've submitted a request. I may have mentioned this to you guys already. We've submitted a request to MAPC for technical assistance to prepare a housing production plan. And so what a housing production plan does is it really maps out the town's plan, for lack of a better term, to build housing units and to plan for construction of housing units. A significant part of that is to remain above the 10%. So hopefully we get funding for that and we can get MAPC's assistance on preparing that type of a plan, which may inform the planning board's discussion moving forward. Because one of the main goals is to avoid 40Bs and stay above the 10%. So I just wanted to point out there are things in process and in the works that the planning board can build off of. I don't think you guys need to start from scratch.
Good input. Thank you, John. So how do you guys feel about establishing a goal of identifying a plan that helps ensure that we stay above that 10% threshold? Seeing thumbs up. Mary, do you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's, as you say, it's something that we can all have consensus that is needed. And it can be addressed in a number of different ways. But an overall plan would be, I think, a very, very good achievable goal for this year.
Okay. All right, good. So good discussion. I think that's a good one. I will say, John, any update on requirements for the MBTA community?
We submitted the action plan. We submitted the action plan, which is due by the end of the month. So that is pretty much the last thing before we need to potentially adopt zoning. So, I mean, there's things in between, but the next real step is adopting zoning. And that's required if we're going to do it by December 31st, 2024. So we've got about 2 years.
Okay.
Through the chair, can I add one comment there?
Sure, Rob.
There's for members of the board or the public that listening in, there's lots, if you Google search, lots of towns are having the same debates that we are, and you can see articles about what's said at their meetings, pros and cons of adopting the zoning district. So it might help educate anybody that's interested what other towns are debating and what's said. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, to your point, there's been a lot of articles, publications, comments. And if anybody is looking for some articles to read, I'm happy to share some good ones as well, because it's a complex challenge that is before us. But I'm actually going to recommend that we also include that as a priority area for us, regardless of how we choose to address it, or if we choose to address it. It's going to take some work beyond our regular hearing process. This is one that, to John's point, we have until the end of 2024, so it might carry over into next year. And I don't think there's a ton of urgency here. I think there's a benefit to seeing how things go in other towns. I think there's a lot we can learn, and I don't think we need to be the first ones here. But I think that's in the interest of being proactive. I think that this is something, the worst thing we can do is take no action and then be forced to rush something, later next year. And then the third one, which is a carryover from previous, but we continue to make progress on, is pedestrian connectivity. So we already have an existing working group, and I want to keep that on the radar as well. It's something that we haven't talked as much about in a larger forum, but we do have sidewalk articles up for annual town meeting this year, and our subgroup is in the process of planning a public input session and some other activities to help build out a full pedestrian connectivity plan. So I said I was going to target one. What I'm saying now is that I think there's three, but I think one of them is well underway, and I think the other two are things that we definitely need to get a handle on as a board. So I'm going to recommend that we work through those three projects over the next year. I don't think we need to take a vote on this, but does that feel reasonable to people? I'll caution you, all of these take some work. So some work outside of the hearing process. Yes, Paul. Oh, I see a thumbs up. Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you all. Good discussion. Complex issues, and appreciate everyone's creativity and the willingness to discuss. Board liaison updates. So we had talked about doing this on a quarterly basis, just as an opportunity to keep the planning board informed about what's happening on our other boards in which we serve as liaisons. So I'm just going to open this up to folks that serve on other boards. Some of them are formal liaisons like the CPC. But does anyone have an update to provide on progress within the other boards that might be of interest to our planning board? Jane.
Sure. So I'll just tell you that you've probably been reading about us in the Independent, but we've been very active with the Upper Charles Trail Committee, and we have been working on improving communications. And we have a working group session, and we're doing that. We plan to come out with some more public sessions. We have applied and actually received funding approval, support for CPC to go forward at the town meeting for just under $50,000 to go forward with engineering funds to research engineering possibilities from the Hopkinton State Park all the way down to East Main Street, which would then ultimately connect with the downtown corridor. So we continue to move forward, and we're very excited.
All right. Thanks, Jane. Any other updates?
Through the chair.
Yes, Mary.
I did not formally prepare any updates, but I think that officially I'm the liaison to Zach, and although I'm not the only member who's crosses both, and the liaison to CPC. Is that right? Okay, so CPC has finished its allocations, its recommendations for town meeting for this year. It continues to do some work through the year, monitoring what's being done, obviously. But I found it very interesting and very good. As Jane mentioned, there was some projects positively voted on for trails engineering, some additional work on the pedestrian connectivity. I can't remember exactly the details of that project that was funded, but it was something to do with that work. There were obviously some fields, as there always are, some fields and recreational opportunities, and including a cricket pitch, which was very cool. Just learning about how those types of fields are designed, and the emerging enthusiasm in our area for cricket, and obviously, and also there was some work in the affordable housing, the current complex that is in Hopkinton, owned by the town, and just some improvements to common areas, patio and landscaping, and bus stop and things like that, to make it a more usable common area. So anyhow, I thought I would share that this time. I would like to put something together to present on what Zach's working on and in the near future. So I don't want to do that just off the cuff, if you don't mind.
All right. Thanks, Mary, for serving on multiple committees, and appreciate the update on CPC. That's in many ways a fun one, because I get to approve and spend money. So in general, across a wide range of activities, but in general for the betterment of the community. So thank you. Any other updates? Paul, anything from I know it's not a formal liaison, but from the Chamber of Commerce? I know you're pretty involved with them.
Yeah, I was just going to actually ask that, Gary. Yeah, I'm fairly involved with the Chamber. Nothing much. We're starting the new year off. We have a event coming up at the Hopkins Center of the Arts this Thursday, I think, for kickoff. But if anyone has a business in town or is interested in learning more about the Chamber, let me know. They do 2 or 3 large events a year, in the sense of Restaurant Week, which is usually in the spring, April, May. And then we do a holiday stroll towards the end of the year, beginning of December, and such. So I'll keep people up to date on that, and I'll send out information when they have different networking events. If anyone's ever interested in joining them, you can just show up, get a drink ticket, meet other people. But there's a lot of people that you all know, probably your neighbors, friends, such like that, who are part of the business community, who are part of it. And it's probably a benefit to just know some of them. And it's always nice to kind of almost get advice from them on certain issues that we face sometimes. So nothing big right now, but I'll keep you posted in the next couple months, or if something big comes up, I'll send out a nice email for everyone just to let them know there's something going on.
Thanks, Paul. All right. If anyone has any other updates, by all means share, but I think we've hit on the big ones. So thank you. Appreciate those of you that were able to provide an update. Lots of our administrative items, minutes from December 5th and December 19th. And Stephanie, thank you for sending those out today. If people had a chance to review them, and I'm just looking for nodding heads, are people comfortable moving forward with a vote of acceptance? Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from December 5th and December 19th, 2022.
Mary Larson Marlowe, so moved.
Jane Moran, second, and thank you, Stephanie.
All right,
Mary, Jane can have the second on that.
Jane with the second. Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob? Rob, are you there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron Pfeiffer, yes.
Elise?
Yeah, Elise, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Matthew Veronka, yes. And I'd also like to thank for the detailed minutes.
And Gary Trindle is a yes as well. So that motion carries. Last thing on our agenda tonight is the Trails continued public hearing. John, I always forget on this one. We don't need to vote to open it because it's already continued, correct? Okay. So do they have a proposed date as to when they'd like to continue to, or are we just going to continue to the next meeting based on the lack of engagement?
Yeah, so their email said, please continue to the next available meeting, which will be February 6th.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for the amended Osmond site plan application for trails to February 6th, 2023.
So moved.
So moved. Second, Ron Preet.
All right, assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Ron?
Ron Preet, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihailovsky, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Matthew LaFranca, yes.
Gary Trundle is a yes. All right, last two things. Number one, if you have any topics that you'd like to include in our administrative component between prior to our next meeting, please send those my way or to John, and certainly we're happy to include things worthy of the board. And secondly, just a reminder to be giving some thought. We have a number of seats that are up for election coming up this year. So I won't get into details. It's not on our list of topics, but we have 4 seats. So we have 2 5-year seats, a 2-year seat, and a 3-year seat up for re-election. So I really, really appreciate the makeup of this board. I think we've got good geographic and age representation. In particular, we've got reasonable gender representation. Just food for thought if you plan to continue on. And if not, I'd love to hear your thoughts or encouragement for other folks that might have interest. So just a quick public service announcement there. But we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I think there's a great chance to make a positive impact on the town, and hope everyone is considering renewing their commitment to the planning board. So on that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Ron Preet.
All right, so no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron Preet, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul? Matthew?
Matthew, yes.
And Gary Trundle is yes. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Have a good night, everybody.
Great meeting. Good night.
Hello.